That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The British Constitution provides that taxation and representation shall go together. Therefore, women taxpayers are entitled to vote.
I have a dream today. Let freedom ring, and if America is to be a great nation, this must become true.
Hello again, and welcome to episode 28 of Only Human. You know, before we jump into our topic of the day, I felt moved, I guess, to remind us why we're here and what we hope to gain from this podcast. Put simply, my hope for Only Human is to help myself and others, maybe you, to make the most of who we are, where we are, with the resources we have at hand. To bring the best version of ourselves to our families, our peers, our organizations, and maybe even the world itself. I don't know if the challenging times we live in is a blessing or a curse, but I do know that our future will be what we make of it. And that's the whole purpose of this podcast, to make our own futures better and maybe bring the whole world along with it. So today we're going to continue our series on problem solving with a look at how we can make permanent solutions stick. And that sets us up for the Blue Threat Proverb of the Week. And this week, it's one of my absolute favorites, Blue Threat Proverb number 20, never trust a dead villain. I mean, how many movies have you watched or TV shows have you watched where the hero shoots the bad guy, but there's like 10 minutes left in the show? And then they turn around and behind him, the villain gets up, right? And you want to say, shoot him again, look out. You know, it's insane how many times in fiction we think we've solved the problem and yet it's still alive. And so that's what we want to get from this Blue Threat Proverb, is that once we solve a problem, we can never forget that that problem came out of our own lives and out of our own circumstances, a lot of which still exist. So what we want to do is be able to solve a problem once. So before we get into all of that, let's quickly discuss what we've talked about so far in the first two episodes of the problem solving series. First, we talked about rapid prototyping, right? And we said that studying a problem delays the effort to fix it. And second, if we study the problem too long, it's not the same problem at all. Because we said problems have a life of their own. They build inertia, they mature, they mutate, and they often change the culture and the people in which they occur, which in turn changes the problem itself. So waiting to act is seldom a good idea, but sometimes it is. And that's what we got into in episode 2 here of this series. We have to learn when to take action. And that's what we talked about last week by looking at first the severity of the problem, the trend of the problem. Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? Is it stable? And then the reversibility of the solution, right? So if we have an all or nothing solution and it doesn't work, then we're back to square one. But if we got a solution that we can modify or pull back from, that begs for quicker action. So today, we're going to conclude this series with a hard look at how we can unravel complex problems to bring them under control. And then more importantly, how we can take action to make sure we put the problem away for good, right? How we play what I call Ender's Game. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Ender's Game, it is, in my humble opinion, the best science fiction novel ever written, and I've read a lot of them. We're going to talk about the book, not the movie. It's a story of a child prodigy named Ender Wiggin, who was recruited into a futuristic military academy when he was 6 years old, and he grows up to when he's 11, right, and defeats mankind's alien enemy. So to set the stage, Ender's Game is a book written by Orson Scott Card. It was published in 1985, science fiction novel that's left really an enduring mark on the genre. It's set in a future Earth that's threatened by an alien species known as the Formics, right? But the soldiers call them the buggers. And the story follows Ender Wiggin, who gets the call sign or nickname of Ender. And he's a young and exceptionally gifted boy. And he's recruited into the military training program. He undergoes rigorous training, and he hones his strategic and tactical skills in a series of war simulations, problem solving from start to finish. It's a wildly cool story. And like I said, my favorite sci-fi book ever, and I've read hundreds of them. So Andrew got the nickname Ender because he finished problems. He finished them. He ended them. So he had to deal with them only once, right? In an early example, he's new to the academy. He's being violently bullied by other boys that were there. And to fix this, he sets up the leader of the bullies. It's a loathsome kid named Stilson. And he lures him into the bathroom. They get in a fight, and Ender kills him. Okay. Problem over. Later on, I don't want to, no spoiler alerts here. Later on, he unwittingly destroys an entire species, or so we are led to believe. Like I said, no spoilers here. After leading a simulated battle against the buggers that, unknown to him, wasn't really a simulation at all. He was controlling the entire human armada. Great book. You got to read it. So what can we learn? How can we learn to play Ender's Game with our own organization, our own personal problems? So there's several steps we're going to walk through today. And the first one comes straight out of Sun Tzu and his book, famous Chinese military philosopher and general, his book called The Art of War. And it's to adopt a comprehensive understanding of the enemy, air quotes, in your own forces. As Sun Tzu used to tell us, know yourself, know your enemy, you'll have 1,000 victories in 1,000 battles, right? Ender spent time understanding not only his enemies, both at the academy, in his simulations, but the Formics themselves, and spent just as much time understanding his allies and himself. So a deep dive into the root causes, right, understanding the enemy of any problem and your own strengths to deal with it is absolutely essential. Understanding not just the what, but the why of a problem can lead to far more effective and far more lasting solutions. So this means looking beyond the surface and analyzing underlying factors. They might be cultural norms, behaviors, trends, systemic structures, maybe even individual motivations and behaviors of key people. And of course, the most key person is yourself. So let's see if we can make this real with a personal example. Imagine maybe you don't have to imagine this, you're constantly overworked and overstressed. And so you read all the stuff you can about managing stress, and you dive deeper into the root causes. Maybe it's poor time management and saying yes. Maybe you can't say no. You say yes to every request. You need to determine these to be the major factors. Or maybe just silly arguments with your spouse or family member. But by understanding these underlying issues, we can create an issue that involves prioritization, setting boundaries, rather than just dealing with the symptoms of stress, playing whack-a-mole with the problem, right? So that's step one. Step two, how do we unravel really complex problems? I have ropes and cables and extension cords all over my property. And I never take the time to roll them back up nicely at the end, and so I can unravel them easily. And sometimes when I need them, I look down at this Gordian knot of chaos, man. It looks like a bucket of snakes. And it's very difficult to unravel it. But in almost every case, I'll look at it and I'll start pulling one end and getting it loose, and then I'll see it. Hey, here's the one spot. If I can unravel this piece, the whole rest of the extension cord of the rope comes free. So unraveling complex problems means you start by solving something simple, right? You pull that one end through the loop, right? Now, Ender understood that big things are made of little things, right? Big problems are made of little problems. And he demonstrated this in a really cool way in simulations, what they call battle room sessions, right? It was a series of zero gravity war games that was designed to train the child soldiers, the cadets. And the sessions were designed to simulate combat, and particularly the combat tactics of the Formics, the big enemy, right? And they presented a really complex challenge, both tactically and strategically, that these kids had to navigate through to win. So the battle room challenge was this big zero gravity sphere, and it had stars and gates. Stars were obstacles you had to move around, and gates were the objectives you had to get through to achieve and win the battle, right? And the kids were divided into armies, equally talented, right? And they had to use their own planning, their own strategy, teamwork, and master their understanding of zero gravity physics to disable opponents. I think they used little light guns, and they achieved their mission objectives, or they were defeated. And the complexity of these battles lied not just in the physical environment, but also in the dynamics of understanding your enemy, understanding your team, and leading that team and yourself under stress, right? And so they were playing these games against equally talented teams, and they had to adapt to ever-changing conditions. So let's look at how Ender handled these battle simulations and see what we might be able to learn from it. First, back to that last key point, break down the problem, right? Ender quickly realized that success in the battle room simulations required a lot more than just individual excellence. It hinged almost exclusively on effective team dynamics, right? Understanding the physics of zero gravity and the strengths and weaknesses of his team to create some innovative tactics that could surprise the enemy and solve the problem. So the second thing after breaking down the problem was he prioritized which parts of the problem he had time to address, right? First of all, they had to master zero gravity movement, right? The fundamental aspect of everything else that he'd built upon. He understood that agility and positioning might be more important than strength or even talent or skill, right? And they were the key in the battle room, where traditional up and down orientation didn't apply at all. And so with those prioritizations set, he began to have targeted solutions, right? So to address the whole team dynamic thing, he looked at building a cohesive unit, right? Not a team of stars, but an all-star team, by ensuring that each member's strength was optimized and each person's weakness was compensated for and minimized. And he innovated new formations and tactics, like the use of the bigger, fatter soldiers as expendable shields, or maybe mobile platforms to carry other people. And he fundamentally changed how these simulated battles were fought. For mastering zero gravity maneuvering, he practiced relentlessly, developing maneuvers that became second nature. Right? So now he's prioritized, he studied the problem, he's prioritized, he's developed targeted solutions, and now he realizes that the enemy is going to be doing the same thing to him, so he builds in the ability to adaptation. It seems, he's got this tremendous winning streak going. They've won, I can't remember, 15 or 20 of these things in a row, a school record, right? And so they stack the deck against him, and they say, for the first time ever, your army is going to be scheduled to fight 2 battles in one day, a scenario no army had ever faced before. And it was meant to wear them out physically and mentally. What it was really meant to do is break his winning streak. Right? So Ender adapted by going into the first battle with really conserved energy, right? He tried to end that first battle quickly, and he did. He employed a highly unconventional tactic and used his own body as a shield to achieve the objective. Enemy thought, well, they'll never sacrifice the leader, and he did that with the full force of the remaining force of his soldiers right behind him, and they won that first battle quickly. They went into the second battle and won it as well. So the outcome of all of this was he sort of revolutionized problem solving and how the battle room games were played. He focused on fundamentals, brought in innovative tactics, strong emphasis on weaving together strengths and weaknesses. And he won against seemingly impossible battles. And they not only cemented his status as a brilliant leader, but also was preparing him for the ultimate challenge that was to come. So what does this have to do with us? As we work through these different complex problems in our lives, realize that we're preparing ourselves for the real big challenge that may be coming in our future, of which, of course, is unknowable. So Ender's success in the battle room tells us that the ability to dissect complex problems, prioritize the components within them, and apply innovative and targeted solutions, right? Getting that first knot untied, and then adapt to the new challenges can make us more effective leaders in our own lives, right? So let's take a more personal example, see if we can put this into place. And I think it's one a lot of us have dealt with. We all look at the scale or in the mirror and you say, man, I don't know where these last 15 pounds came from, but I got to lose some weight. There's an entire industry that tells us, hey, do this special program, chair yoga, right? I'm really fascinated with that lately. Or take this pill, right? Or follow this diet, or order these little prepackaged things that are take account of your biometric metabolism individualism, and cook 1 in 2 minutes and you can eat all you want, you're still going to lose weight. There's all these things that people tell us, right? And I've bought a lot of those things. I've tried a lot of those things. But at the end of the day, losing weight is a very complex issue, right? We have our own metabolism. We have our own desires, right? I love to have cookies and milk before bed, right? And maybe 1 or 2 cookies would be good, but I love sugar. God, refined sugar, it's a horrible drug, but I love it, right? And so in order to get started, I had to look at my own behaviors, my own addictions, if you will, to that behavior. And so I did something I learned from Atomic Habits by James Clear. I substituted something that I could have in my hands to eat and drink just before bed, but it wasn't filled with refined sugars and fat, right? So instead of a 1,000-calorie just before I go to bed snack, I'd have some popcorn and sparkling water. And then I migrated to vegetables. And it worked slowly for me over time. I had to prioritize when I could get my exercise in and what types of exercise that looked like. And so as we're looking at complex components such as diet, exercise, sleep, stress, mental health, all which have an impact on that big problem of losing weight, we can achieve the big goal by understanding the enemy, understanding ourselves, and applying our own innovative strategies to achieve that goal. So here's a quick summary of the steps for breaking down complex problems, because I've been talking for a while here. First, break down the problem. Just as Ender analyzed his enemies to understand their weaknesses, breaking down a problem into its fundamental components can reveal vulnerabilities for quick and decisive interventions, right? 2, now that we know what the problem is and we've broken it down, prioritize the components. Not every component is equally impactful, right? I think the key thing in my weight loss was getting rid of the cookies and milk and substituting something else. So when you can prioritize a small problem, when you solve it, it'll have the greatest impact on the largest issue. Implement your targeted solutions, specific strategies to each of these components. We're talking about stress again. Maybe it's time management. Adopt a scheduling tool. Stick with it for a few days. And then the 4th step is to monitor and adapt. But all the way back to our first episode on Study the Solution, Ender, man, he was always ready to adapt his strategies based on new information or the actions of the adversaries. So similarly, monitoring our progress toward our outcome and being prepared to tweak them ensures that we might only have to fight a problem once. All right, we're going to go on to a real key topic here in a second called strategic preemptive action. But let's take a quick break for a word from our sponsor. We'll be back in 1 minute to talk about how we can do that to kill a problem once and for all.
So, you need some IA refresher credit, huh? We've all been there. Which one are you doing this time? The one with a 4-hour video hosted by a boring nerd? Or the one with a 50-page workbook printed on cheap paper? Wait a minute. What's this? The Aviation Maintenance Never Events is a brand new approach to preventing the 7 most common and most costly accidents that happen on the hangar floor. Watch videos that demonstrate the topic, learn while staying engaged with multiple interactive sections in each lesson, and dive into case studies that explore the depth and breadth of each of the 7 never events. So visit our website or give us a call to discover the power of a program that people are calling as big a leap forward in maintainer safety and training as simulators were for pilots.
Join us on our website at emergentperformance.com and click the link for e-learning to sign up for this exciting program today.
All right, thank you to our sponsor, and welcome back. Like I said, we're going to talk about how do we take strategic, which is big, grand scale, win the war type stuff, preemptive action against a problem. So back to Ender Wiggin. He knew that he had to anticipate future challenges. And he knew that if a challenge was coming, the clearer that challenge became, the quicker he could act to preempt it from becoming a big problem. So once a problem's understood, identifying potential future obstacles and implementing preemptive measures can prevent the problem from getting any worse or even eliminate it before it appears. So we want to go after our problems at an early stage, and that's been a theme of this entire series, because the problem is weaker and we are stronger. When the problem arrives, it takes away our attention, it elevates our stress levels, right? So at an organizational level, it might look like a policy change or altering a process or maybe training our people a little bit better to avoid that problem from getting any worse. On a personal level, it might, let's take a finance thing. Every year around Christmas, I say, this year we're going to buy everybody one thing, right? And then I look at my credit cards in January and that's not what we did, right? Knowing that the holiday season always puts a strain on your finances, a preemptive action that a lot of people take is to start a small savings account at the beginning of the year and say, look, I'm going to put in a couple $100 a month. And at the end of the year, I'm going to have $2,400 to buy Christmas presents with, or whatever it is, right? Very simple preemptive approach. And it not only eases the financial pressure of the holidays, but it makes them a lot more fun, right? Because you're ready. And if you go a little over, a little under, you can deal with it. And once you put this strategy in place, it prevents the recurring problem of starting a new year with high credit card debt. So kind of an example of how we can take this. All right, step 4 is all about learning and empowering people other than yourself to help in the battle, right? So Ender's success wasn't just due to his own abilities. He understood that his leadership and empowering of his team would create a lasting solution, right? Because lasting solutions can never rest on one individual, because we all have weak moments and strong moments, right? So remember that educating and empowering all the stakeholders, all your teammates, all your allies, right, ensures that the solution is sustainable and that the problem doesn't reoccur to a lack of understanding, right, or commitment. A personal example here as well. Maybe you're stressed out because your family's not communicating real well. Maybe your partner and you, this never happens to me, are disagreeing about who should do what around the house and the property. And rather than continuing to see this problem escalate, right, you sit down and have a simple open discussion to understand and agree upon the other's perspectives. You set expectations, and this simple conversation can lead to, a shared chore list, right? Not that on one day you say, hey, can you go down and feed the horses for me because I've got a call early in the morning? Or, hey, Tony, can you do this because I've got an appointment I've got to be to, right? So it empowers both people in the partnership to contribute equally and understand the importance of having those discussions and maintaining your home or property to both your expectations. So communication and shared responsibilities are really an example of how you can empower and educate without having to go to extremes of, go to training programs or something like that. Finally, the fifth step to making sure a problem goes away for good, playing Ender's Game, is to build your resolve. And with resolve comes resilience. We've talked about that before. Because building resilience and resolve can help you ensure that your solutions are lasting. It means designing systems, commitment, processes, habits that aren't just robust, but are also flexible, adaptable, and sustainable. You're creating a problem where your problems, when they do arise, or when they do mutate, it goes left, it goes right, can be managed quickly and effectively without getting you off track and having that problem rear its ugly head in its full form again, right? So, I don't know, let's talk about resolve with a personal example. Maybe, a couple of years ago, I had not a good health year, right? I had to have my hip replaced. I couldn't get any exercise in for a month or two after that. I was getting older, a whole bunch of things. Every bone in my body was cracking and aching. And after that particularly challenging year, I decided I was going to focus on bouncing back, right? Both physically, emotionally, mentally. So I got back into a regular exercise routine, started small, moved forward. I practiced some mindfulness techniques. I drank more water. I adjusted my diet. All of those things took mental toughness and resolve to stick with, right? But these changes not only help you recover, but also equip you to use those same strategies to manage anything in the future, whether it's a health challenge, physical, mental, or something else. It demonstrates to you that you have the personal commitment, the mental toughness, the grit and resolve that it takes to put a problem down and keep it down for good. You shot it the second time, shot that villain the second time. Okay, let's wrap this whole thing up with a quick summary. When we want to play Ender's Game, when we want to solve a problem once for good, we have to first improve our understanding of the problem and not be overwhelmed by the problem. It allows us to address strategically the challenge at its roots, right? It prevents us from duct tape solutions or playing whack-a-mole. Every time it gets so severe, we got to do something about this. No, we got to do something about that, right? So improve your understanding of the challenge. It's so hard to look at negative things in our lives because it's natural to say, I'm tired of thinking about my financial situation or my health or whatever. I've got to move on to something that makes me happier, right? Well, what will make you happier are knowing that you're taking positive, proactive steps against something that you understand that's not magical anymore. It's not a mystery. It's just a problem, and you're good at problem solving. Okay, step 2. Remember, take preemptive actions whenever you can. Right? Use your foresight. Stop problems in their tracks before they can escalate to a point where you can no longer solve them. Right? Easier said than done, I know, but still. When you see a problem, take preemptive actions, even small ones, to slow the progress of the problem until you can figure it out. Right? So how do we figure it out? Step 3, break big problems down into little ones, solvable little miniature problems. Fix one thing, then look at the problem again. Fix another thing, look at the problem again, and all of a sudden you've got something you can handle. 4th, empower yourself and your team to make sure that you understand it, you're taking actions, you're monitoring those actions, and that will give you the support you need to make your solutions stick. Remember, no one person can completely conquer any problem and sustain it because we have our ups and downs. But if we've got allies, we've got teammates, when we're down, we can let them know and bring them into the game. And then finally, the last step is resolve, resilience, mental toughness, grit, whatever you want to call it. That builds the capacity, especially over time. As we get through one big challenge and then the next one and then the next one, we begin to know that we have the capacity to handle problems without falling back into old habits or old patterns. At the end of the day, remember the blue threat proverb, never trust a dead villain, right? You may have buried him, you may have shot him twice, but who knows? He could have a bulletproof vest on and be a phoenix, right? So playing the Ender's game with our problems means not just solving them, but solving them in a way that they stay solved. It requires foresight, understanding, innovation, commitment, and resolve for permanent solutions, right? Not just quick fixes. And I think by applying these principles, we can tackle complex problems with some confidence, right? That's a big C, confidence. It's the mindset that says, "Yep, I've been waiting for you. Here you are," right? And once I put you down, you're not going to come back to haunt me, man. You're not going to sneak out of the closet and grab me when I'm not looking. And it'll make our lives better, our organizations better, our families better in the long run. So remember, the goal isn't to just fight battles that we face today, but to win the war once and for all. Like Ender, think strategically, act decisively, ensure your solutions are as enduring as they are effective. All right, well, that's a wrap on episode 28. We've got a big announcement coming in episode 29. I'll foreshadow it a little bit by saying, if you've always really been thinking about, gosh, I really wish that I had an Only Human t-shirt or coffee mug that I could, proudly wear or hold on to in the morning, that wish may be coming true. So thanks for joining us on this journey through problem solving, a quick 3-part series. Remember, we're here to build a better future. We're here to build a better future for ourselves and those we care about. Stay tuned for our next episode. We're going to explore some new dimensions on how we do that, how we achieve our potential. I'm not really sure where we're going on a specific topic yet. Got a couple of ideas, but like always, you give me your feedback and I'll roll it right in to one of our future podcasts. So thanks for joining us today. I look forward to seeing you again next week. Remember, we drop Tuesdays at 9 a.m. on Spotify or any of your favorite podcast platforms. Please continue to share this with your networks and your teams. Smash that like, follow button, whatever it is that you do. Can't wait to see you again next week. See you soon.